Hey everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood DJ Jazz Hands here with an awesome treat for everybody out there. Now, if you've grown up with cartoons and you've heard this awesome, amazing voice actor, Phil LaMarr, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No problem. It's such an honor. Like I said, like you've done so much stuff, and everybody has. Like you've been in like almost everything. Like if you watch cartoons in like 2000s and onward, we've heard you. So I guess kind of like the first question, just to kind of get into it. I mean, I know it's a simple one, but how'd you get started in voice acting?
That's an interesting question. I actually did a cartoon, my first cartoon, when I was in high school, but that was really more a summer job than a career. I consider it really after Mad TV, because on Mad TV we did a bunch of claymation stuff that those of us in the cast wound up voicing, and that's where I really got my first real experience doing it. And then after I finished my 5 years on Mad TV, I really started pursuing animation wholeheartedly, and got fortunate enough to get on some really good shows out of the gate. You know, Weekenders, Samurai Jack, Static Shock. Been enjoying it ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, because like I know you, because like I said, you've been doing it for a while now. And like I said, anything from like the 2000s, if you've been watching cartoons, like we've heard your voice. So how has the voice acting world, changed for you in particular from kind of back then to now, like from first starting to now? How has it changed?
Surprisingly, not that much. I got into voiceover right after what they call the cable boom, when Nickelodeon and all of these outlets began to create original animated shows. Before that, I think there was a lot less cartoon work, and then after that, it blew up. And that's sort of when I came in, although that was probably a high watermark because you had cable and you still had Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
On the network. I don't know if it's decreased since that went away, but there's now there's 500 channels, and so many of them are cartoon channels. Plus, there's much more adult-oriented animation now than there was when I began. I think that's probably the biggest change, is that there are now tons and tons of cartoons specifically for adults, as opposed to something like The Simpsons, which was on at 8 o'clock and was considered for kids and adults. Now there's things that you can't even let your kids watch.
Yeah, exactly. Which, and that has to be really cool, kind of as an actor, going from only playing little kid stuff to kind of really getting like this nitty gritty, more adult kind of content.
Well, the thing is, quality isn't determined by the maturity rating. I'd say that Static Shock and Samurai Jack, which were perfectly fine for a 7 or 8 year old, are better shows than some that are being made on networks intended for adults. It's like, just because you can curse doesn't necessarily mean the writing is better.
Yeah. I do agree with that, and I absolutely loved Static Shock and both Samurai Jack. They were phenomenal cartoons, and you did a fantastic job voicing on them. And kind of speaking of voice work, how is it when you're in the booth or when you first get a character? How do you kind of come up with the voices? Like, I understand that there's the process of looking at it and going about it that way, but for you, what's some kind of techniques that you use to really find a character's voice?
Well, there's two different approaches. There's when you're auditioning for a character, then you sort of look at the description you're given. Hopefully you have a picture as well, and you make your best guess for what you think the character they're describing would sound like. Then if they like what you're doing, usually you go in, you meet with the creator, and it's a collaboration, it's a discussion. He's like, I love what you're doing, this part of what you're doing. Could you add a little more of this, make him a little younger or make him a little meaner, and you work together to find the character. I mean, sure, it's similar to what they do with the character designers, working on the look of a character. It's like, oh, this is great. Make him a little fuller, All of this. Animation is an amazingly collaborative process. It's slightly different if you're already on a show and then there's a new character that's added on. It's like, oh, and there's this robot bounty hunter. Can you voice? And then it's usually a little simpler. It's like, okay, what do you want? Like a country sheriff? It's like, yeah, mean country sheriff. All right, something like this. And then they go, great. You put more work into the main characters, and it's a much longer process of determining the voice, because people are going to be looking at that character every episode, for the length of the series. So you really want to put some thought into it.
So like Wilt, when you came up with that voice, what was the kind of process like that? Just the exact same, and you just wanted a gentler voice?
Yeah, well, they said, just do your regular voice. I'm like, I don't have one. Which one? And, and it wound up being like a softer, nicer version of, not too far from my own voice. And then things also evolve as the writers get a handle on the characters, the actors get a handle on the character, things shift and change. Because I think Wilt, for instance, started out more like this, but then eventually got, a little taller sounding, and maybe even a little slower to make him sound nicer. I think for Samurai Jack, he stayed pretty much the same. He might be a tiny bit lower in pitch now than he was in the very first episodes, but he's been through some stuff.
Yeah, and I mean that's where I really want to get into now. I mean, because we got to talk about Samurai Jack. When you first started doing Samurai Jack, when did you realize that this show was special? Because it has such a huge devoted fan base, and it's an amazing just art and the acting wise, it's such a cool show. When did you realize that, oh man, this is something special? I
realized that my first day I showed up for work, because Gendy Tartakovsky, the creator, had this animation test he had made, and he showed it to us, and I'd never seen anything like it. Just the way the action moved, the music, the tempo, the visuals, the colors. And all of those things that make the show so amazing were right there from the very beginning, So I knew it was special. I didn't know that people would respond to it the way they have, because you never know. Quality is not necessarily a dictator of success. Mm-hmm. But, in this case, you got both.
Wow. I mean, yeah, because it shows in the work how special it is, and of course, a show like that hadn't been done at that time, really, for a child's based kind of cartoon. So it was really, really cool. And I'm sure you get this question quite a lot, but how's it been for you going all these years, not knowing an ending, not knowing if Jack kind of got back to his own time? Because a lot of the fans were like, what happened? What
Yeah, it's funny, because I think at first, I've worked on a lot of shows over the years, and the vast majority of them have ended at some point. In fact, pretty much all of them. Some of them have ended more than once. So you learn to be resigned to it and let it go. But it was wild, because over the years, people kept asking about Samurai Jack. There are a lot of other shows I worked on. I would be happy to have all of those shows come back, because, hey, it's work. But this one in particular, people were really deeply invested in finding out, does he get back? Does he defeat Aku? How does it end? There was really a sense that it needed to be completed. And that was unique. Which also makes this, doubly satisfying. One, we get to finally have some resolution, and two, we all get to come back and work with, these really talented folks again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually going to ask, for you, how has that full story been coming, getting to come back and be Jack? Because in the trailer that Adult Swim dropped a while ago, I believe like 2 weeks ago, I think, but Jack's kind of more talkative. Like, I think it might be the talkative that we've seen him ever. So, I mean, how's it been for you getting to come back as Jack? And have you brought anything kind of different to the table that we haven't gotten before?
Well, the story is approached in a completely different way. Before, we were exploring, in the original series, we were exploring the world. This one is really a lot more of an exploration of Jack. And that's been a new approach and a really fantastic challenge for me.
What else can we expect, from the show? Because it's going to be on Adult Swim, so it's going to be a lot more darker and grittier. But is there anything else that fans should kind of look out for or expect from this show?
Well, I mean, I think people should be aware that, because some people say, oh, it's on Adult Swim, so it's going to be more adult. And it's like, well, no, it's not like just all cutting off heads and, disembowelments. It's adult in a different sense. It's, what this guy has dealt with and how that's affected him, which you don't really deal with a lot in cartoons. Nobody ever, you don't see Wile E. Coyote dealing with, like, depression. It's like, man, I've been trying to do the same thing for 40 years and failing constantly. How does that affect his self-esteem?
That'd be an interesting show, though.
Yeah. Or what does the Roadrunner think?
Yeah. Why is this guy chasing me? That's awesome. But so yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited for it. Now, are we gonna get? Because we've seen the trailer and we've gotten to see Jack, and the trailer was fantastic. And but are we gonna get to see any of the other kind of maybe classic characters at least mentioned or brought up, like maybe the Scotsman or maybe even the Talking Dogs or the cyborg? What was it? The cyborg samurai or bounty hunter? Are we going to get any more kind of flashbacks or other characters showing up, or is it just strictly Jack and the new characters?
It remains to be seen. Because you're asking for spoilers now.
Oh,
I can't do that.
I'm sorry, I don't want spoilers. I was just wondering if we're gonna get any good, any other kind of cool, fun characters.
Oh yeah, there's lots of them.
Oh, awesome! I cannot wait for that. So, do you think the fans will definitely be satisfied, because this is the end of Jack's story? This is going to be completing the series, correct?
Again, I don't know. Like I said, quality is not a dictator of success. All I can tell you is it's great. It's really, really, really good. So hopefully people will be satisfied with really, really great.
I know I will. I'm just excited to see Jack back. Like, I loved watching Samurai Jack as a kid and getting to kind of see him as an adult and get this story going and get to hear more of you, and your portrayal of Jack is going to be fantastic. I'm really excited for this.
Oh, thanks. Me too.
So is there anything else that you want to kind of just let the fans know about this Samurai Jack series that's going to be coming up? Let people be prepared that we're going old school on this. It's coming out week by week. So there's no binging. You show up March 11th and you wait a week for the next episode. So they're gonna have to watch it like the grandparents did. Okay? Be prepared. There's nothing wrong with a little waiting, and as long as this story can kind of get not necessarily dragged out, but as long as we get to enjoy this story as much as possible for however long it's on TV, is going to be fantastic. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it'll be great.
So is there any advice you could give to people who actually want to get into the voice acting industry or want to get into the voice acting world? What's some advice that you could give?
The main thing to remember is that being a voice actor is being an actor. It's not like the easy version. It's hard. It's unstable. And right now we're the Screen Actors Guild, and after the union is on strike with the video game industry because we're trying to get paid, something that we can survive on. And yeah, it's not an easy job. It's something you have to love in order to do it. And it's about acting first, voice second.
Awesome, awesome. That's fantastic advice. I love when voice actors just give such good advice about, to people who really want to get into the voice acting world. So thank you for that amazing advice. And is there any other projects that are coming up that you can talk about?
Yeah, it's been a busy time. I'm doing some on-camera stuff, working on the HBO show Veep, working on a new show, Get Shorty, based on the Elmore Leonard novel, playing the head of a studio, and at the same time working on the Disney's The Lion Guard and some projects of my own, some animation stuff that I can't say too much about it yet, but down the line there'll be more to do.
Awesome. Well, I cannot wait to see what's going to happen, and I cannot wait to see Samurai Jack return March 11th on Adult Swim. It's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait. Well, thanks so much, Phil. It's been a true honor to sit down and talk to you and just kind of pick your mind.
Cool. Thanks for talking with me.